Happening now on Grid Tonight. Josh Berry is joining the Wood Brothers in 2025. Can he help turn around the iconic NASCAR team and get them back into victory lane? McLaren signed Christian Lundgaard to replace Alexander Rossi in 2025. Is Lundgaard an upgrade, or is McLaren just continuing this game of musical chairs? Carson Hocevar was penalized for spinning Harrison Burton under caution at Nashville. What was his official punishment? Hello to all of our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Kobe Lammett, and with me are Joshua Burton, fill in for Matt White, Ben Snyder from Grid Encore and LastCar.info. And here's a friendly reminder, Grid Tonight now begins 30 minutes early at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time every Wednesday night. Moving forward, we definitely encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening.
Good evening, Kobe. Good evening, Ben, as well. Nice to see you again. So, this morning, Wood Brothers Racing announced that Josh Berry will take over the iconic number 21 Ford full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series. After Stewart-Haas Racing announced that it would cease operations at the end of the year, Berry landed at the Wood Brothers to replace Harrison Burton. Now, Berry's journey to NASCAR has been a unique one, from his days of racing at the Nashville Fairground Speedway to driving late models for Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s team and becoming one of the best short-track racers in the country. Berry made his Xfinity Series debut back in 2014 with JR Motorsports and entered select races over the several years after that, while continuing to focus on his late models program as well. Now, in 2021, he had a great opportunity to run multiple Xfinity Series with JRM and made the most of it by winning at Martinsville and again later that season at Las Vegas. This earned him a full-time Xfinity ride for the 2022 and 2023 seasons. Also in 2023, Berry served as a substitute driver for Hendrick Motorsports and Legacy Motor Club, which ultimately helped him land a seat at Stewart-Haas Racing for 2024. In 2025, Berry's new Wood Brothers team will continue to receive sponsorship support from Ford Motorcraft / the Quick Lane, but additional sponsorship and his crew chief will be announced at a later date. However, it seems very unlikely that Berry will continue working with current crew chief Ronnie Childers, who called Berry a winner with a huge future. The photo courtesy there of Wood Brothers themselves as well. Ben's here this week to answer all our questions that we're going to put to him. Nice to see you again, Ben. And the Wood Brothers haven't won a Cup race since 2017 at Pocono with Ryan Blaney, as the team still searches for its 100th win. Is Josh Berry the right driver to help them turn around several years of what has been disappointing performances?
Absolutely. And Berry has the experience to get the job done. He may not have the experience in Cup, but he's been a racer for a very long time. And I believe it was only his sixth start or something like that, where he was subbing for Chase Elliott last year and finished second at Richmond. So he has the ability to bring a race-winning car to the front of the field in the NASCAR Cup Series. And we've seen it even the last several weeks with Stewart-Haas. He's kind of been up and down. He's had some DNFs, but third place finishes at Darlington and New Hampshire within the last couple of months or so. So he has helped turn that team around a little bit. I think everybody is motivated to do a little bit better over there at Stewart-Haas right now and finish on a high note with the team, at least in its current form and iteration going away. Tony Stewart's involvement leaving. Of course, we know we're going to have one of those cars still running next year as a Haas factory rebrand. But for Josh Berry, this is an incredible opportunity for him. And John Wood actually tweeted something that was very interesting, which I quoted and said that I think this could be a winning combination. But he said that Josh had multiple options on the table, but liked what he saw enough at the Wood Brothers to go ahead and make this decision here. So I think that, like I said, this could very well be a race-winning combination for sure. I don't know if in year one they could compete for a championship necessarily. They do have a very strong affiliation with Team Penske. Some people even call it, in essence, the fourth Penske car. But it hasn't been having those results in recent years, while Team Penske's won the last two championships, and Austin Cindric even has a Daytona 500 and just picked up his second Cup win as well. This car has not won since 2017, only won once since 2011 with the Daytona 500 with Trevor Bayne. That was with Ryan Blaney, of course, at Pocono in 2017, like you mentioned, Josh. So they have been starred for success. Harrison Burton, as much as I think he does have talent behind the wheel of a race car, just for whatever reason that partnership has not worked, I think he could probably make a good move going back to the Xfinity Series. I think we'll talk about that here in just a moment a little bit more. But as for Josh Berry, this is a fantastic opportunity for him, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do next year.
Yes, of course, with Berry taking over the number 21 Ford in 2025, this does mean that we'll see Harrison Burton looking for a new home. Now, since becoming a full-time Cup driver in 2022, Burton has struggled to live up to expectations, which has caused many to say he was rushed to the Cup Series too soon. In his third full season at the Premier level, Burton only has one top 5 finish and 5 top 10s as well. It seems like his performance have gotten worse and worse each year. He's finished 27th in the points in his rookie year, 31st last year, and currently sits 33rd right now as well after round 19 of the normal regular season. So what's the best path forward for Harrison Burton's future? Stay in the Cup Series or consider returning to Trucks or Xfinity to try and restart his career?
Well, I think Denny Hamlin said it best on Actions Detrimental a few weeks ago. I would rather be winning on Friday or Saturday than running 25th on Sunday. And that's what Harrison Burton's been doing. He's been running. I mean, he did not have a top 20 on a non-drafting track this year until just a few weeks ago at Iowa. I mean, that's how subpar the performance has been. And again, I don't think it's, I think you're right, Josh. Harrison Burton, I think, that sentiment is very much widespread across the NASCAR fandom, that he was certainly rushed up a little bit sooner than people expected him to be in the Cup Series. But if anything, I feel like if you look at the results this year, it just hasn't, if anything, it's been a step back. And if any, I mean, you could argue perhaps it was a good opportunity, to come in at the right time with his rookie year being 2022. Everybody was a rookie in some way, shape, or form that year with a brand new car, an next-gen car. So it was a good time to launch your Cup Series career in one respect, I suppose. The parity was up a little bit, and everybody was learning a new car on the fly, just as the rookies were obviously learning the Cup Series as a whole. So I think that, in hindsight, obviously you can say that Harrison Burton should have probably stayed in the Xfinity Series another year or two. I understand the move at the time that the Wood brothers made, that Harrison Burton made, but at this point, I think, we'll see what happens with those two Haas seats in the Xfinity Series, or what Ford might be able to do if maybe a reunion with Toyota is back on the cards. Who knows what's going to happen there? But I think that if I'm Harrison Burton at this point, I would much prefer, and I think it would be better long-term for my career, if I go back down to the Xfinity Series. I mean, talk about Cole Custer. We'll see what his plans are for 25. But Custer, he did get a win in Kentucky, but he, for the most part, underwhelmed in the Cup Series. He went back down to Xfinity, won several races, and even a championship to cap it off last year. And could be in contention for another one this year. So I think that for any driver in Harrison's sort of situation here, that's the move that I would be making, rather than continuing to run in a mid-pack Cup car and running 20th to 25th on my best days.
You know how I feel about drivers going up and down the market, but sometimes it helps. I don't have a problem with them going up and down if they're trying to restart careers. It's just that if they're in the Cup Series and then they're going round, that I don't like. That I think is detrimental to it all. But I do agree with you. Maybe he should go back at least to Xfinity to try and restart his career and just get a little bit more confidence back in himself as well. We'll see how that story develops, I suppose, going forward as well. Do you reckon we'll hear much of it this weekend being talked about as well inside the paddock?
I'm sure we will. Obviously, this has been the latest domino to fall with the Stewart-Haas closures and Chase Briscoe moving over. I feel like I heard somewhere somebody said that the Wood brothers were interested in Chase, but it became apparent pretty quickly that he was going to get that Toyota seat once Truex announced that he was stepping away full time. So I'm sure it'll be discussed at length this weekend, and then talks probably cool down a little bit. I saw Harrison put out a statement himself saying, obviously it wasn't the news that he was hoping for, but there's a great opportunity to go out there and prove some doubters wrong at Chicago this weekend. And then he wants, everybody's talking about Josh Berry getting win number 100. The Fords have speed on super speedways. We got, another Daytona race, another Talladega race coming up. I wouldn't put it past Harrison to get a win there. I don't know if he's going to get a win on a random mile and a half. I don't know if that team is there right now, but who's to say Harrison couldn't go and get win number 100 himself? So, this news has to motivate him more than ever to finish the season strong. And then, like I said, probably not this year, because I know you don't like active Cup drivers racing in lower divisions, but next year, restart your career, go run for an Xfinity championship. I think that's the best move for his career.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and certainly I'm looking forward to talking about it this weekend on our side, especially when it comes to Chicago. We're back at the street circuit. I can't wait for that one as well. Talking of musical chairs, let's go on to our second story, because who had this coming as well? Yet another McLaren change. Yep, it is. But this time, it's not for this year, it's for next year. Christian Lundgaard is leaving Rahal Letterman Racing at the end of the 2024 Entity IndyCar season and is signing with Arrow McLaren. Now, Lundgaard will replace Alexander Rossi in the number 7 Chevrolet. In his third full season of IndyCar competition, Lundgaard had one win last year on the streets of Toronto, including 2 poles and 3 podiums up to this point. The 22-year-old Danish driver, his stock has been on the rise for a while, and he finally got the competitive seat that he was looking for with the top team. Now, Lundgaard said it's a huge weight off his shoulders to get this deal done, which will allow him to focus on the final races with his current team. Scary that we're into those final races now, actually, as well. Now, paving the way for Lundgaard to find a new home, McLaren and Rossi mutually agreed to head in a different direction. However, Rossi seems confident about signing with a new team soon to remain in IndyCar. He said he's very confident with current discussions in the paddock about landing a new spot and has the goal of ending his Arrow McLaren tenure by finishing top 5 in the points this year. The photo taken here by Joe Sabinski from Penske Entertainment. Kobe rejoins us for this one, and we'll start with you. Is Lundgaard an upgrade over Rossi? And what type of team do you see Rossi landing at next?
Yeah, once again, another change at Arrow McLaren. I can't say that I expected this, but I guess we shouldn't be too surprised. I remember in recent weeks, everyone was saying that Alexander Rossi will more than likely go back to Arrow McLaren. Everyone was just assuming, since Rossi's having a good season and running very consistently, that we would see him go back to that car. But unfortunately, things happen. And like you say, Josh, they decided to go in opposite direction. Now Alexander Rossi going to be looking for a new home. But what a great thing that happened for Christian Lundgaard. I know he's really wanted to try to get a seat like this to prove what he can do. I think Rahal Letterman Racing at the moment can only take him so far. And I think that with Lundgaard being on a car like this, it can give him an opportunity to show what he can do week in and week out. We all know that Christian Lundgaard is a really good road course and street course racer. I still think his ovals need a little bit of work, but I think it's getting better. And in terms of an upgrade over Alexander Rossi, if you're looking at Rossi's age and Lundgaard's age, if you're looking at a driver that you can build your program around for the future, I guess you can say that Lundgaard is an upgrade, because a 22-year-old is going to have more upside than a 32-year-old driver who's been a seasoned veteran for quite a bit of time. But who knows how long Christian Lundgaard is going to last, given how McLaren seems to give up on their drivers very quickly. And as for Alexander Rossi, I really don't see him at the moment getting a seat as good as the one that he's on right now. And like you said, Josh, Rossi said that his goal is to finish in the top 5 in points. I wouldn't put that past him. I think it is certainly possible for Rossi to finish in the top 5 in points. It's unfortunate, that he's running so consistent. He's going to be out of this car, but I just don't see him getting a seat as good as this one, unless you see a changeover at Chip Ganassi Racing. If an opportunity comes up to go to Ganassi, I'm sure Rossi would take it. But right now, the only options I see is potentially a new team like Prima, who's coming in, who could really benefit from having an experienced IndyCar driver. And Prima previously said that they wanted to bring one of their current or former drivers from the Prima pipeline, and then for the other seat, an experienced IndyCar driver who's been a veteran of the series. And Alexander Rossi will fit the latter there. So if Prima wants a veteran, I think Rossi would be good there. And Delcoin Racing is always looking for drivers, so that could be another option. And AJ Foyt Racing as well. Don't know what Santino's going to be doing. Stingray Rob's, having a very difficult season. And we remember when Alexander Rossi was running extremely well over at Andretti. At one point, Roger Penske wanted to bring over Alexander Rossi, but Rossi decided not to, pursue Penske and stay with Andretti. And I know it wouldn't be going to Team Penske, but AJ Foyt Racing is a Penske affiliated team, so in a way he would be getting in Penske affiliated stuff. So maybe that could be a fit there. But I'm sure Alexander Rossi will definitely be in the NTT IndyCar Series racing next year. I don't think it'll be an Indy 500 deal only, or like racing sports cars, until you find something next year. I really do believe that Rossi is going to be here in 2025 running something full time.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't have too much to add. I do think it's going to be an interesting lineup, assuming that these rumors come to fruition here. You could have the last two American F1 drivers teammates with a team that has provided so many current and former F1 drivers with a step on the development ladder over there with Prima coming in. So what a story that would be for Alexander Rossi and Logan Sargent should these rumors develop here and those be the two drivers for that team next season. But we had a comment in the chat room. I don't know if Kobe wants to bring that up from Astral Police asking, let's see, there we go. You think a straight swap to RLL is on the cards for Alex? That's something that I hadn't considered. I know that, again, straight swaps are rare, but not totally unprecedented. But I don't know. That would certainly be an interesting development for Rossi. But again, to Kobe's point, I think Rahal, as it stands, can only take its drivers so far, particularly at the Indianapolis 500. I mean, even Graham himself he got bumped in 23 and nearly got bumped again this year. I just sweat the last row shootout out once again. So I don't know for Rossi. I mean, especially with how incredible his overtakes have been at the 500. I feel like that's probably one of his best tracks, certainly his best oval in the series. I think that, he probably would want to see something a little bit stronger than that. But then again, Prima is a pretty big unknown. So who knows what's going to happen there. But that is an interesting idea. If we would essentially see a trade in essence between Rahal and McLaren, that'd be interesting for sure.
It would be. And speaking about that 45 Honda, because with Lundgaard leaving RLL, it is going to be attracting a lot of attention, that number 45 Honda seat as well. So their reserve driver of Yuri Vips is already on the record saying that he is looking to race in a fourth RLL Honda in the second half of 2024 season. Even made the request to make his oval racing debut as well. And according to IndyCar's reporter Tony Jahane as well, Thierry Poitier recently took a tour of RLL's facilities. And looking at it, the current group of drivers, Graham Rahal, as you said, isn't having a good season. Pietro Fittipaldi hasn't set the world on fire either as well. Ironic considering he stepped in for Romain Grosjean as well. But reading Rahal Lanigan's statement here that they put out regarding Lundgaard parting ways with them at the end of the year, it says that Rahal Lanigan Racing is looking forward to closing out our working relationship with Christian Lundgaard as successfully as possible and thank him for his past efforts on behalf of the team. We are proud to have brought him into the NTT IndyCar series and wish him well in the future. So it's pretty much cutthroat there, isn't it? It's business is business with IndyCar. So do you think that Vips or Poitier will likely be the leading contenders to replace Lundgaard or RLL? And could we see more than one current RLL driver on the move as well?
Well, I would love it to be Poitier. I think he has been completely screwed over with the McLaren deal. And, again, Josh, we've talked about this on the Encore show in the past as well. These F2 champions win the title, but there's somebody else lower in the standings that brings money, but, also has a super license that gets the seat instead or has the connections or the, whatever the case may be there. So you just look at the last several champions there. I feel quite sorry for Felipe Drugovich. I felt sorry for Oscar Piastri. I know he's in a good spot now, but he had to basically sacrifice a year of his career being a test and reserve driver. And now it seems like the same fortune or misfortune rather has come over Théo Poitier here. So it'd be great for him. Be good for Yuri Vips as well. We talked on this show last year. I think everybody deserves a second chance, provided they show that they're willing to learn from it and work for it. So Vips, I think, would be a driver worth looking at, especially considering he's already part of the facilities within the family as the reserve. But again, I think about how Rahal has been running, and I think, to try to stretch your resources. I mean, we talked about this with Andretti as well, downsizing to 3 cars. Sometimes less is more, addition by subtraction. I don't know, but running 4 cars as it currently stands at RLL is necessarily the best move for them across the board with all of their drivers. I feel like that might stretch their resources a little bit thin as well. But we'll see. Again, a lot of pieces still to fall into place with the driver market. It's only the beginning of July here. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I think on paper, yes, those are probably Vips and Poitier, probably your 2 leading candidates.
Yeah, for sure. And also want to wish you a happy 4th of July coming up as well, Adam. But getting back to the question here, I think if we had to guess right now where this is going, it really seems like that the leading candidates, probably going to be Porsche or Vips, but more than likely Vips, because Bobby Rahal, he's gone on the record talking about Vips. I was just reading the Marshall Pruitt's interview with him on Racer.com earlier this afternoon, and Bobby Rahal saying, we want to get Yuri behind the wheel of a car soon. He really believes in Yuri's talent. One word that came up over and over from Bobby Rahal was loyalty. He really appreciates loyalty, and Yuri Vips has shown that loyalty to him. Sticking around for basically 2 full years in a row of not racing at all. Just staying loyal as the Rahal Letterman Lanigan reserve driver. So just waiting for someone to, I guess, get sick or injured and able to participate, and then he would be the driver to go in and race an IndyCar. But Yuri Vips, he just been helping out the team on the simulator and just doing all the things that reserve drivers do. And I guess we'll find out soon if Yuri Vips' loyalty to Bobby Rahal is going to pay off and he'll get that seat. It would not surprise me if RLL put him in Christian Lundgaard's seat full time next year. But I totally agree with you, Ben. I think Teo Porcher is certainly deserving of a chance. But looking at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing as a whole, I obviously think Graham Rahal will probably be there at that team until he decides that he doesn't want to run anymore. I don't really see Graham trying to go to another team. I know he's hinted at that in the past, like if RLL can't give him the equipment that he needs, that he wants to prove that he's among the best. And I don't see an opportunity for him right now to try to go to a different organization. But like you said, Josh, Pietro Fittipaldi hasn't really done that well either in the other RLL cars. So maybe the team could be disappointed in that performance and decide to move on from Pietro. So it would not surprise me to see 2 of those 3 seats open. And I think the other seat could potentially be a landing spot for a Teo Porcher.
Would really like to see Porcher get a full-time shot somewhere in the motorsport paddock as well. There were rumours that he's been linked with the second seat at Sauber. All we know at the moment is that Nico Hülkenberg has one hand on that trophy at the moment for 2025 and going into 2026 when Audi take over. A lot of rumours going around tomorrow as well about the signing of Ollie Behrman going to Haas. So that releases at least either Kevin Magnussen or replacing Nico Hülkenberg, because Haas have kept themselves very quiet on it all as well. So there's also rumours that we're going to see Carlos Sainz either signed with Williams or with Alpine. So as the seats close in Formula One, the seats sort of close for Teo Porcher. So F1 sort of kicking off as it did last year, the year before. It kicks off the driver circle in IndyCar as well. Remember a couple of years ago when we had McLaren dominating the driver market? Not much has changed. So going on to our hot topic for this evening as well, after spinning out Harrison Burton under caution during last week's NASCAR Cup Series race at Nashville Superspeedway, Carson Hocevar was fined $50,000 American dollars and lost 25 driver points. Now, this became a recurring theme for Hocevar, a talented young driver who lets his emotions get the best of him. He's Max Verstappen in many respects. Now, we've seen him lose his cool and show immaturity on multiple occasions in the last few years, with the biggest being the 2023 Truck Series season finale at Phoenix, when Hocevar spun Corey Haim while battling for the championship. Hocevar has a reputation for intentionally spinning to bring out cautions and flat out dumping his competitors. Now, onboard footage emerged after the race at Nashville, showing Hocevar going after Todd Gilliland under caution, who spoke for a number of people in the garage area by saying, "I hate this kid, I hate him, honestly." Graphic courtesy there of the NASCAR creative design as well. Now, is Hocevar hurting his chances of landing a top cut ride in the future if these antics continue? And what needs to be done for him to finally learn that this behavior won't be tolerated at this level?
Well, what needs to be done is he needs to be suspended. And I'm not saying that he needs to be suspended for this one particular incident here. I think this is just the latest straw that's broken the camel's back. And I think that it leaves the door open for NASCAR at the next opportunity that this happens under green flag conditions, or if it happens and it's a little bit more egregious than this or more dangerous than this. I said it in our private chat this week as well. I don't think the kid's going to change until he gets taught a lesson in that regard with that harsh of a penalty. Because ultimately, 25 points with where Hocevar is right now. I don't know that makes too much of a difference in this playoff era where, all he would have to do is take a shock win and, that just completely erases that there. I don't know if that fine's coming out of his pocket or if his sponsors are going to help pay for that. I mean, it's essentially just a slap on the wrist, and it's, a slap on the wrist that is coming for a driver that has, as you mentioned, Josh, this isn't his first sort of incident like this. He's developed a reputation. You saw it in the Truck Series Championship finale last year. You've seen it, at plenty of other truck races throughout his career as he was working his way up. And that, I think, was the one reservation a lot of people had about Hocevar when he got this seat. Nobody was disputing his talent. Nobody was disputing his upside. Josh, you just compared him to Max Verstappen. I think that's one of the highest compliments a young driver can receive in terms of talent. But in terms of racecraft, perhaps not so. And, I think I can't help but think back to a comment that Kyle Petty made in 2012 after Jeff Gordon took out Clint Boyer at Phoenix and was calling for Gordon to be suspended. It didn't matter, but he was a 4-time champion. He talked about Kyle Busch and Ron Hornaday at Texas the previous year, taking Hornaday's shot at a truck championship away. And people might counter that argument. This is Kyle Petty bringing this up and saying, people might say, well, look at all that Kyle Busch did. But his counterpoint to that was, look, if NASCAR had stepped in a couple of years earlier when Kyle Busch was, dealing with all these antics and retaliations, then maybe we wouldn't have gotten to the point where he intentionally took out Ron Hornaday in a dangerous right rear hook Texas Motor Speedway when, the trucks were still traveling, essentially at green flag speed. The caution had only just come out. It was a very dangerous situation for Busch to put Hornaday into. And if NASCAR had put the hammer down a little bit sooner, maybe we wouldn't have gotten to that point. So again, I think, it's too late now. You already fined him and docked him points. That's going to be the punishment for this incident. But I think, Carson Hocevar is on not even 2 strikes. He's on 2.99 repeating strikes. I think the next opportunity that NASCAR has after an incident like this, assuming one happens, maybe Hocevar gets the message now and cleans his act up. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that this is going to be enough to do that, but I think I would be totally ready to suspend Carson Hocevar for a race, and I think that's unfortunately what it's going to take. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that he recognizes that his driving is not going to be tolerated if he continues on this path, especially at the Cup level. I mean, it shouldn't be tolerated at truck level either, but especially in the NASCAR Cup Series. I think the response was very telling, from not just Todd Gilliland, but I think Ryan Hines got on Twitter and responded to that quote and saying, like, everybody does, or we all do, or something like that. It seems to be a very common sentiment in the garage that Carson Hocevar has not made very many friends based on his driving over the last several seasons here. So we'll see. I don't wish any ill will on him. I hope the best for him and his career and that he can get it together. But I think, unfortunately, it's going to take a suspension for him to do just that.
Do you think he's got the potential to be a Cup Series level driver? Because we haven't been seeing it so far this year. So do you think he can grow into that position?
Well, Josh, I don't know if I fully agree with that. I think we've seen the potential. I think he's outrun certainly Zane Smith. And again, credit to Zane Smith. I was going to say that for the hots and knots, but a fantastic second place finish for him. But before that, really the lowest ranked car among all the full-time chartered entries, and Corey LaJoie, I mean, he's been in that Spire car for 3.5 years now, and just hasn't seemed to display the same level of progression forward that Hocevar even has in just his first full-time season here. So I don't know off the top of my head, like, how many top 10s or top 20s Hocevar has here. I'm trying to pull that up here. It looks like 2 top 10s this season, and in the top 20 about as often as not. So I think that where Spire is right now, I think we have seen glimpses of potential from Hocevar in terms of raw pace and in terms of talent. It's the racecraft and how he races others that needs a lot of work. And I think Kyle Busch again was very similar. Nobody was denying how fast he was, but did he have the racecraft and the integrity necessary to be a Cup champion? And you know what? Kyle Busch cleaned up his act. He's a 2-time Cup champion now, and surefire bet to go in the Hall of Fame. I'd like to say not even first ballot. He's a don't even need a ballot Hall of Famer. He is an all-time legend of the sport. I would not put that past Carson Hocevar with the speed that he has shown. I want to make that very clear. It's not an indictment on Hocevar's talent or anything. He absolutely deserves a Cup Series opportunity, but he has to respect that opportunity by respecting others on the track, and he has not proven that he can do that at this point in his career. He is only 21 years old, so I think all teenagers and early 20-somethings, are dealing with some level of immaturity. I can certainly speak to certain opinions, certain things that I've done and said over the last several years, and how I've matured now. I just turned 25 this weekend here, so I understand what he's going through in that regard. I don't understand any of the driving behind the wheel of a race car, obviously. I'll defer to him on that, but I don't think that should disqualify people like you or I, Josh, from calling out unacceptable behavior on the track when we see it. And I think this was one of those instances where it crossed the line this weekend, no doubt.
I bet we're officially the age we can call them kids, so it's fine. I'm standing in the comment box talking to about 16-year-olds in Formula 3. I'm starting to feel very old.
There was a driver that made his debut in the ARCA race this weekend that was born in 2008. I'm just thinking to myself, I remember 2008 when Dale Jr. went over to Hendrick and won the Bud Shootout, and this kid was born 3 days after that, and now he's in an ARCA car. It just drives me crazy thinking about how old I'm getting here. I'm closer to 30 than 20. If you want to make a comparison there, I mean that's really mud.
Oh my God! So one of the best stats I heard this week. Before we go over to Matt for the Grid EPI, the last pole position for McLaren at the Barcelona circuit of the Spanish Grand Prix was in 2005, the very day that Oscar Piastri was born. Raikkonen was on pole position for that race. So Oscar Piastri is now a measurement of time from when he was born to when McLaren last and next had a pole.
Do you mean Oliver Behrman? Because I think Piastri was born in 01.
Sorry, Behrman. It's Behrman.
Was born in 05.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
Right,
yeah. See how tired I am. Yeah, you're right. It's Behrman. Behrman's. He's the one.
But he did. But he's an F1 driver now. He did a race. He's 13 still in points with how many points he picked up. Yeah.
Megan actually feels really old now because for the first time she's actually older than an F1 driver because he was born May 7th, and Megan was born 30th of April. So she was a week old when Behrman was born, and she hated that fact.
I felt that way when Lando made his debut because I'm June of 99. I think Lando's November of 99 or something. So that was a surreal feeling for me the first time it happened too.
Yeah, April as well, same thing. And it got to me as well with Sonoda. Naught. He was our first naughter. That was in 2021. Anyway, enough rambling as well from us too. Thank you, Ben. We can now go to the back rooms because next it's time to hand over to Matt White with the latest from our Grid EPI update.
Thank you, guys. This week's Grid Endurance Performance Index update comes to you from Belgium. We've had the last of the Big Four 24-hour races for the 2024 season, the Centenary Edition, Spa 24 hours, and a first win for Aston Martin at the Ardennes Classic. Matteo Drudi, Marco Sorensen and Nicky Team winning for Come To You Racing. It looked like AF Corsa had the race in their hands with 40 minutes to go, and Alessandro Pierguidi got blocked in the pit entrance, handing Aston Martin the victory. Double victories for Get Speed in the categories. In Gold Cup, they won with Dominic Baumann, Phil Ellis, Michael Grenier and Faisal Al-Zubair. And in silver, James Kell, Yannick Mettler, Aaron Walker and Anthony Bartone getting the victory. Bronze Cup was won by Max Hoffa, Dylan Pereira, Alexei Nesov and Andrei Mukovos for Trezor and their Audi. And an American win for the CrowdStrike Mercedes team in Pro-Am, Colin Braun, George Kurtz, Nicky Katzberg and Ian James, the winners in that category. Change at the top of the standings because of what's happened at the weekend, where Lawrence Van Voort was back in the lead for the second time this year, should I say, and he now has dropped down the standings because he had a non-finish at the weekend in the Spa race, which puts back to the top Andre Lotterer for his second run at leading the points score. Probably won't be back in action for a couple of weeks though, when the WEC touches down in Brazil, back at Interlagos for the first time in some years. This weekend we have the third round of the year for the European Le Mans Series. They're back after their Le Mans break, and they're at Imola. All staying in Italy, we have the Misano 12 Hours, the latest round of the Creventic Series, and the DTM is back for their street race of the year at the Norris. Bring you all those updates and a points standings check on the show in the regular slot next week.
Thanks, Matt. Now time for some more motorsports news from around the world. Meyer Shank Racing will return to the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in 2025, fielding a pair of Acuras in the GTP class. It's a big homecoming for MSR, who previously held a long-time relationship with Acura until their sabbatical from IMSA competition this year, putting the tire data scandal behind them from early 2023. Acura is giving Meyer Shank another chance with two prototypes that'll compete for overall wins. The multi-year agreement will see Honda Racing Corporation USA take on a larger role with their own people engineering one of the Acura prototypes, while MSR handles the second Acura. David Salters, president of HRC USA, said running their own GTP car is the next exciting step for all of their associates at the organization, and feel like it's logical for HRC USA to engineer their own race car. And looking at the comment from Mike Shank, co-owner there, saying, first, on behalf of everyone at Meyer Shank Racing, I want to express our gratitude to David Salters and everyone at HRC and Acura for giving us this opportunity. We are supremely grateful to have earned this new opportunity, and everyone on the team is looking forward to day one in our new relationship with Acura and the new role we'll be playing in HRC US's IMSA program. And I guess it just proves, that second chances are possible. And of course, with MSR and HRC USA taking over the Acura GTP program, this means that they're going to be parting ways with Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Global at the end of the 2024 season. And the statement from WTR Andretti is followed. We have had a successful run with HRC and Acura these past 4 years. When it came to renewal, we listened and took their future plans into serious consideration. But in the end, we felt like we needed to go in a different direction moving forward. With 3 key races left in the season, our plan is to continue to focus on winning more podiums and races for Acura to end the year strong. We're looking forward to announcing our plans for 2025 in the very near future. And the hot rumor about WTR Andretti is that they're going to be switching to Cadillac in 2025 and beyond to align with their Andretti Global Cadillac F1 ambitions there. So they would have everything under one roof. So we'll just wait and see whenever that announcement comes out in the future. And during last weekend's Portland E-Prix, Robert Wickens got the opportunity to test a Formula E car. Wickens drove a modified car with hand controls in his return to a single-seater. He revealed that a Formula E team offered him a contract back in 2018, but the timing wasn't the best because he had already committed to IndyCar. Wickens added that it's been a goal of his to return to an elite level of motorsports since the horrifying IndyCar crash at Pocono several years ago that left him paralyzed. Wickens still believes that Formula E is a good fit for him and hopes the stars will align for him to potentially run Formula E in the future. And the photo here, courtesy of the series. And in case you missed the news that broke on Monday afternoon before the Grid Encore show, Joey Logano is replacing Hailie Deegan in this weekend's NASCAR Xfinity Series race at the Chicago Street Course. Logano will drive the number 15-4 for AM Racing. As a two-time Cup Series champion, will certainly be able to provide feedback to the team and see where their program is at. Team president Wade Moore said it's the team's goal to field a competitive Xfinity Series scene through their technical alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing. Clutch Vodka will sponsor Logano's first scheduled Xfinity start since 2019. And be sure to check out Monday night's episode of Grid Encore to hear what Ben and Brandon had to say about Deegan sitting out Chicago. Graphic courtesy of AM Racing. And a little bit before we come on the air tonight, got this statement from Juncos Hollinger Racing that said that Lindsey Brewer has been a valued member throughout her time at Juncos Hollinger Racing, and it's been a privilege to have her on the team. However, due to contractual obligations being unfulfilled, Lindsey will not be driving for the Juncos Hollinger Racing Indy Next program for the time being. We wish her the best and hope she can return when able. Yeah, so Lindsey Brewer is out of her Indy Next ride for the foreseeable future. And with that said, gonna turn over to Ben for everyone's favorite game, pick a winner.
Thank you, Kobe. And unfortunately for Lindsay, I don't think that's too much of a surprise. The way that statement's worded makes it sound like it's a sort of sponsorship deal, but I think performance-wise, it simply hasn't been there either for her this year. So we'll see what the future holds for her. Maybe a step back down the open wheel racing ladder or whatever the future holds for her career. Of course, we wish her the best and hope to see her behind the wheel of something. But yes, I would be surprised if that deal resolves itself sooner rather than later, given everything that's happened in Juncos Hollinger Racing this year as well. So we'll keep our eye on that for the Encore show. In the meantime, like Kobe mentioned, we've got a couple of races to take care of for Pick a Winner. We don't unfortunately have a graphic this week, but I know a lot of people are trying to catch Matthew Groh up at the top of the leaderboard. So let's start with the MotoGP sprint race in Germany. And again, don't take your fantasy advice from me for anything other than F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR, but I do my best here for the rest of these series, trying to close in on the lead myself. I'll just take a shot in the dark and say, Pecco Bagnaia. Kobe, what do you have?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna keep rolling with the last sprint race winner last time out. Pecco Bagnaia getting the job done again. Who you got, Josh?
The king of the ring is Marc Marquez. And on a Ducati bike, I think he's going to be unstoppable. If Marc Marquez is in form, he has the business. I'm going Marc Marquez.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. And then we have Supercars back at Townsville. So for race 1, again, kind of a shot in the dark for me. It's not a series I follow as closely as some other team members here at Grid Network, but I will go with Chaz Mostert and just see what happens. Kobe, who do you have for race 1 in Supercars?
Yeah, Chaz Mostert is a really good pick, but I think I'm going to keep rolling with Red Bull Ampol Racing Triple 8 operation. Give me Brock Feeney to continue his winning ways, and it's been quite a championship battle between him and his teammate Will Brown. Who you got for Supercars, Josh?
I'm going to go with Will Brown. I'm not as like Ben, don't get to cover it that much as well, but I'm keeping more of an interesting eye on it this year as well, with looks to future plans. So yeah, I'm going to go with Will Brown for that one.
And big weekend, of course, for a former Supercars driver who's trying to continue on in his transition over to NASCAR. Shane Van Gisbergen looking to defend his Chicago street race win. So more races coming for pick a winner. And understand people will want to wait until qualifying for those and make their picks when the time comes, but keep an eye on that as well. Adam Lemery says pick a winner MotoGP sprint. He's going with Marc Marquez and then Will Brown for race 1 of Supercars. So, Josh, it's time for Hots or Nots, presented by insert your company name here. I think that's the theme that Matt's been going with here over the last few weeks. Hots for me, again, I teased it here, and again, I want to make clear I value what little integrity I think we have left in terms of determining our champions over in NASCAR. I would not have been a fan of the 71 team taking up a spot in the playoffs, just because I think, quite frankly, with how they've been running, it's a bit of a wasted spot. I don't know if that team is in a position to truly fight for a championship, but on an individual race level, I can certainly give my props to Zane Smith and what he accomplished and going on that alternate strategy and the race continuing to get extended and then extended again and then extended for ultimately 5 overtime finishes. Somehow, some way, Joey Logano had enough fuel. I know people at Spire were hoping that he was going to fail tech because of an enlarged fuel tank. They could not believe it. He made it stretch all that way. But credit to Joey Logano for the win. But Zane Smith, certainly a hot for me this weekend, with by far a career best in the Cup Series with a second-place run.
It was fantastic, wasn't it, as well? I wasn't commentating on that race because I think... what was I doing? Formula E in Portland, there we go. So I couldn't commentate on the race, but I was watching it. I even stepped in during the rain delay on US Events coverage for a little bit. That was also simulcasting on JBM. So it was nice to sort of sit back and take a look at it and then watch it in the morning. And I could not believe 5 overtime restarts. I keep missing all the good ones this year. I really do. I am picking my races that I cover. But I thought it was a great race, to be fair. Hot for me, it's tricky because it was a long weekend. I can't remember it all, as well. I spoke to you. It's like there was so much stress over the weekend with Dorna. That's another knot coming up. It hasn't processed in my brain. It's like I cannot tell you a thing that happened in Formula 3. There's like flashes in my brain, so not really any hope there. So I'm afraid, everybody, I'm going to have to stick to Formula 1 in my hot. And I'm going to have to say that finally we got a Grand Prix. Yes, it wasn't the greatest Grand Prix with Max and Lando, and Max hitting Lando, moving under braking, Lando again, trying to go around the outside. And the two championship, look, for the first time in years, the 2 championship 1 and 2 crashed, and it was a big deal. And it was sort of like, okay, Max still can't race wheel to wheel. In my book, I read it as a great Grand Prix because for once, it's been clear over the past 3-4 months that Red Bull are not the fastest car anymore. They have competition. We've had 4 different pole sitters in 5 different races, with 4 different teams being those. We've had Max at Red Bull twice, Charles taking it in the Ferrari, George has taken it in the Mercedes, Lando's taking it in the McLaren. So Red Bull are no longer the top dog. McLaren are the strongest. We saw this late last year. They really worked on the car over the winter, and they've hammered it in the early starts of this year. So Lando and Max finally being wheel to wheel is exciting me. I really hope Ferrari get them back together and it could be a three-way fight. Mercedes still need some time. I think they're just going to wait for 2026 personally. But everybody's been saying to me at the start of the year, oh, Formula One is dead. Formula One is dead. It's Max Verstappen show, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, he's had a couple of races this year, but it's competitive. You've said it as well, yeah. It's competitive. There's action. There is always something going on. And to actually have a battle for the lead finally, because it was Imola, then it was Miami, and it's all just been closing up. Canada, Spain. It's these close races again, the close qualifyings. And it all came to a head in Austria. And it proves that when Max Verstappen is put under pressure, something in him snaps, and he can't race wheel to wheel. He would force them off the track. So Silverstone's coming up. Anniversary of that big accident with him at Hamilton. Adam Norris, Lando's his father, liking it, as well as what Lando's going to do into turn one. I think we're going to be in for an absolute barnstorm of British Grand Prix. So my hot is that Formula One is back. It's popular. And I think we're going to be in for a very interesting second half of the season. Yes, Max will probably win, but going into 2025, which will be the last year of the regulations, it's like going back into 2021 again. Everyone's closed back up and everyone's going to be exciting. So that's my hot. Austria is my hot.
Adam saying hot British Grand Prix weekend. SVG looks to go back-to-back in Chicago. Zane Smith in Nashville, and then F1 race was good in Austria. Can you imagine an all-British podium?
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what the order is. If it's Lewis, George, Lando, whatever order they are, 1 through 3, the absolute scenes that we would be witnessing at Silverstone, it's incredible just thinking about that. But I do think if Max Verstappen doesn't win the race, it's going to take a crash or retirement or reliability issue for him not to at least be on the podium. So I think the chances of that are pretty slim, but man, it's mouthwatering just thinking about what that might look like.
There's also this to think about is the fact that Max Verstappen historically doesn't go well here. He's only won 2 races here. He doesn't like this circuit. It's a flat circuit. Yes, there's effectively 3 straights, but it doesn't suit the Red Bull. This track actually suits the McLaren more, which is why Lando's got a great opportunity. This is a very infield section. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing that the McLaren is actually the best in the slow midfield corners. That's what we have. The first sector here as well, that'll favour the McLaren. Second sector will favour the McLaren. It's only the last sector, which comes through Maggots, which comes out of Copse Corner, through Maggots and Beckett's and down the Hangar Straight. That favours the Red Bull. So it's a really split faction here. We should be in for a great race, but if Max has said only won 2 races here, last year being the second, the other one being in fact, he's only won 1 British Grand Prix. Can you believe that? He's won 1 British Grand Prix and then he won the 70th anniversary. Grand Prix. Yeah.
Exactly.
So he's only ever won 1 British Grand Prix. Lewis won 8. Sainz has won 1. So I'm trying to think who else on the grid. Alonso's won 1 as well, I think in 13. So no, hang on. No, that was Webber in 13. No, it was Rosberg. Who won? I can't remember. Alonso won in 11. There we go. On this layout. Alonso won in 2011. So it's a circuit that will suit more McLaren than Red Bull. So that's going to be interesting. But for top 3 British drivers on the podium, in any order, it could be very reflection of what we see. What could our general election be? Our general election is tomorrow, to where the Labour Party look like they're swinging ahead, predicting majority of 232 seats, which, to try and put that into American standard for you, is the equivalent of one of your parties having the majority not only of the House, but of all of the Senate. You get all of the Senate, and then only like a small fraction is the other party. So it's a big deal. So to try and put it into perspective, I would put Lewis Hamilton as the Labour Party. I'd put George Russell as more of the Conservative Party, and I'd put Lando Norris more of the Lib Dems. So it's a question of it could be we could see Lewis on top, but Lando and George fighting it over second position. Because if it comes to this track, Lewis is king around here. But we've got Lando who's sort of coming up the rise as well. So it's a really strange Grand Prix weekend, and it's a really interesting time. And you won't see any politicians on the podium. Rishi Sunak was supposed to be presenting the Winners' Trophy, but he will not be Prime Minister by the time we get to Sunday. And also, the politics and motorsport, yeah, they've been removed. So I don't know who's presenting the trophy come Sunday now, because it was supposed to be him.
Well, I think it would be amazing for Lewis to win, of course, because I think back to when Kimi won Coda in the Ferrari, and everybody recognizing this was his last year with his current team and getting that final victory before he moved on. Of course, Lewis is going to Ferrari. Kimi was going to an Alfa Romeo Sauber team that we knew was not going to be competitive for wins, but a little bit of a different story for Lewis, not quite apples to apples, but that would be really great to see. But I'm just glad. I think we can officially say with Mercedes winning this weekend, it's a big four now. We've been saying it's a big three for years with Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes, obviously, and McLaren have slowly been working their way back up. And just as they got back, it looked like Mercedes took that step back and McLaren just replaced Mercedes. But I think George Russell was in third. I mean, you can say the seas parted for him, and he took advantage of the opportunity, but he was in position to take advantage of the opportunity to win a Grand Prix on merit, and he did exactly that. And we'll see if he can add to that total this coming weekend at Silverstone, or if any of the top three British drivers can do that. That would certainly be a hot. Josh, I don't know if you want to follow up on that before we go into the knots here.
Well, we've got 4 different teams, but effectively it's only 7 drivers, because everybody is sort of discounted Sergio Perez. So it's quite funny, really.
I didn't want to go. I will say this about Checo. He's won multiple races in that Red Bull. Gasly couldn't say that. Albon couldn't say that. At least Checo has that on his record. Nobody can take those wins away from him. But the last of those wins came a long time ago, and it does not look like with current form that he's going to be competing for wins anytime soon. But he still somehow got a 2-year extension, whereas Gasly got replaced mid-season, and then Albon never really got a chance beyond, I think, 1 podium to show what he could do in the Red Bull. He had to, again, sacrifice a year of his career before he got the Williams seat. So we'll see. I don't know. I feel kind of bad because I wasn't going to go there, but I guess you could say really 7 drivers in the mix, and Piastri's flirting with his first career win as well. So who knows what's going to happen? But complete role reversal from what I expected the season to be. It's been fantastic. Some of the competition that we've gotten. The other hot that I had real quick, a literal hot, the fact that the sun came back out at Nashville to assist in drying the track. I think that shortened the rain delay by a little bit. It's always frustrating when that happens on the road courses, because then we get the changeover, just as we're getting the wet weather racing going, the sun's come back out to drive a track, and now there's a dry line and everybody comes back in for slicks. It was nice to see that happen on an oval for once, so we could get back to racing even sooner than we would have otherwise. But we certainly needed that. Otherwise, we would have been up even later, because this leads right into my knot. I'm sorry, Josh. I didn't like the race. Or I didn't like the finish at the very least.
Oh, I didn't like that.
Well, and I will tell you, it's not even the quintuple overtime. It's the fact that Mike Bagley ran a poll on Twitter asking what would be your ideal number of overtimes if you were in charge of NASCAR. What would you like
2
to
to
see?
3.
Well, the poll options were none, which was my vote, and I acknowledge I'm in the minority on that. I think only 6% voted none, which, it's a hill I'm willing to die on. I'm sorry. Either that or we take the numbers off of the race name. I would be slightly less staunchly opposed to overtime if we did that, because I think numbers mean something. They're not arbitrary. But the options were none, 1, 2 to 4. You went all the way up to 4, and unlimited, which in this case would mean 5 or more. And I would imagine my horror when I saw that despite what we just witnessed at Nashville, 3/4 roughly of NASCAR fans were saying, yeah, we still want unlimited attempts. So I guess that's just all the proof in the world that the cat's out the bag, and we're never going back to what I would like to see. But again, I'm willing to compromise. I'm willing to come to the negotiating table a little bit. I understand you want a green flag finish, but I'm only going to give you 1 attempt, because what we saw this weekend is absolute insanity. And Brandon brought up on the Encore show this weekend as well, which is something I'm not aware of because I don't do iRacing. He does, but even iRacing has a 2 overtime limit. And that's a virtual racing simulation / video game. I'm sorry to the iRacing enthusiasts out there. It is by definition a game over video format. But that has no real life consequences if you wreck your race car. These team owners, these crew members, they have repair bills that add up. They have man hours that they have to put into repairing their cars. to come back from an next race weekend. There are serious consequences here to continuing to tear up all of these race cars and all of this equipment, and to be so staunchly of the mindset that we have to get a green flag finish at whatever cost by any means necessary, to the point where we're willing to do this 5 overtimes in a single race. NASCAR going into quintuple overtime. It's just absolute insanity. And I hope that we eventually come to our senses. Can we at least go back to limiting it to 3? Can we have some sort of limit on here that doesn't allow for what we saw Sunday night? I understand that it's an anomaly. I understand that it broke a record for a reason. We'd never seen it before. But the fact that we want to continue to leave the door open for that to where it could possibly happen, I'm sorry, I don't understand that.
Michael Schumacher said records are there to be broken. No, not these records.
Not these kinds of records, no.
To be fair, I'd say 2 to 3. I think if we have to have it, I think there should be a cap. Otherwise, it just gets silly. And 5, I think JT got angry as well in the chat. In our com chat, he put in say how angry he was getting with it all because he was up late as well because it was his turn to cover it. So yeah, I'm not a fan of those because it keeps everybody awake and can't do your viewership. It's like, oh right, they're never going to finish. Good night, everyone. It turns people off and tunes people in.
Yeah, well, and I think one of the counters to that was if you do limit it to 1 and everybody knows that it's the last attempt, that maybe it leaves the door open for semantics like Kevin Harvick's 2015 Talladega situation where he recognizes that he has a wounded race car and sets off a wreck at the start, so that's the 1 attempt and that then it's done. Which, okay, I understand that argument, but that only would further move me towards I'm less willing to compromise now. We ended races at scheduled distances for years. And again, I brought up this point on the Encore show as well. I don't want to be too repetitive. I'll let you get into your not here in just a moment, Josh. But I think a lot of it just depends on circumstances. I think like people were saying, all that for a Joey Logano win. And I know Logano hasn't won a points-paying race in a long time, but he's not among the most popular drivers among a certain group of the fan base. But then you have a 1998 Daytona 500 with Dale Earnhardt, a more popular driver, maybe not universally as universally loved as his son Dale Jr. was, but still had a sizable fan base, and certainly at that race, wanting to see a driver of his accolades and his career achievements finally win the biggest prize in the sport. I think that was a very popular win. That race ended under caution. I don't think very many people were complaining that day. Certainly the Earnhardt fans weren't. So I think that's a factor that people don't take into consideration as often as well. I think who wins the race, who benefits from it, I think a lot of times dictates, how fans might feel about a certain way, because we all let our biases as race fans get in the way of that sometimes. When it benefits our driver, we're usually going to take it and be okay with it. Whereas if it costs our driver, well, if you were a Kyle Busch fan of the Daytona 500 25 years after that, he led at mile number 500, but Ricky Stenhouse won the Daytona 530 because we changed the rules. Now we want a green flag finish, and we again took multiple attempts. It's just it's something I'm not a fan of. But there are plenty of things about modern NASCAR that I'm not a fan of that I've just learned to live with and accept, because now it's been going on for so long. The younger generation doesn't know any different, and they want to see that entertainment. They want to see that excitement.
Look, I'm still wrapping my head around next year and how we're going to cover it all as well, in terms of now we've got an in-season tournament inside the regular championship, but we've also got the playoff system trying to contend with. So there's actually 3 different championships you've got to try and work your head around as well, but only one of them counts.
That's the thing. I mean, you're so far off the deep end now that I don't care. You have your in-season tournament. I can't keep track of it all at this point. But some of you want it badly enough. That's fine. I don't care. Go ahead and have it. I've run out of outrage and anger. I don't have any left for the in-season tournament. I'm completely fine with it. It's
modern NASCAR is a strange beast, says Astral. Yeah. So what, the one problem I've got is creating the thumbnails. The thumbnail graphic I create as well, because we're going to get to the round of 16, and I'm going to run out of room. We're going to have to add in a special round of 16, like round 1 of 16, round 2 of 16. It's just want to scream as well. Oh, Bob Podcast just tweeting as well about the Josh Berry news as well. Coming into it. Well, my knot's a very old knot, and it is Dorna again. Copyright striked mid-broadcast of the German Grand Prix. I lost all. all hope for it. In fact, if it hasn't been uploaded yet to the channel, but when it is, because it got taken off, so I think it's going up tomorrow. When you see it, you'll see that I'm really giving it my all up until about 10 minutes, 20 minutes in, when it gets taken off air. After that, I'm very monotone. I lost all energy for it. I genuinely have lost. I just said to Maddie Patterson, I'm just kind of not wanting to cover this championship because Dorna just do nothing but shut the door on you. So yeah, I'm hopeful that their social media team are regenerating, and there's a couple of changes that we're making to the broadcast as well. But yeah, Dorna's still my big knot of the week. Second big knot, obviously, Max Verstappen driving like a child. I'll tell you what, if I was his father, I would have left him at the gas station as well that night. He was always in. I would have. He was in the wrong. He was massively in the wrong. And he just didn't do it once. He did it 7 times. 7 times moving on to braking. And then also, when he did cause that crash with Lando, he had a puncture. He still tried to force Lando off the road, coming down towards turn 4. What was the point? Max Verstappen, honestly, he's one of the right. Max Verstappen, look at me like me now, just a normal person, lovely guy, wonderful person, so much fun, having a laugh, go and have a beer. Max Verstappen, when the visor goes down, is an absolute hell demon. He is one of the worst I've ever seen. He is a great driver when he can win races, but wheel to wheel, he has no skill. And that's me saying that. He forces the driver off the track. He's been doing it for years. He's been doing it since he came into the sport. The only reason he's a 3-time champion is because he can drive fast, and him and Adrian Newey were the demon partnership together. He can get out front, he can race, and when he's great at race pace, but wheel to wheel, never has been. And he is not Senna. Senna had that God-given talent where if you were racing him, he knew where the limit was and he would make you decide what was going to happen. Senna would play the chicken game. Max Verstappen plays, I'm the bully, it's my ball, I'm taking it home now. I hate it. It's not him. That's not racing. I'll stop.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, people have the GOAT debate, and I think it's very difficult to compare across eras, but I think some people have said, maybe Senna was the fastest, but Schumacher is the GOAT, or maybe, Schumacher had the fastest car. He was great at going fast, but his antics got on some people's nerves at times. But Senna had the rivalry with Prost, and I know again, Max fans will be very quick to point out Silverstone in 21, but I think that was a rarity for Lewis Hamilton. I wish that he had handled that situation a little bit better than he did, but I think there are countless examples where Max Verstappen, again, nobody, like Carson Hosvar, which is a comparison you made earlier in the show, Josh, nobody's denying his pace or his talent or his ability to drive fast. We just doubt his ability to actually race. And now that Red Bull have been caught by McLaren again, Lando Norris is now in the position that Lewis Hamilton was in, or perhaps that Max was in, taking the fight to Lewis Hamilton, because now Max has been on top for a while and the gap's closed back up, if you want a more accurate comparison there. Max actually has to race somebody again, and we just saw it in Austria this weekend, and it ended in tears for both drivers, with neither one standing on the top step of the podium, and that's obviously not something that's sustainable if you're Red Bull Racing. So I'm sure they've had some hard conversations with Max this week, but regardless of whose fault it was, ultimately at the end of the day, they didn't get the result that they wanted. So I'll be a little bit nicer, Josh. I don't know that we need to go the full Jos Verstappen, leaving him behind at the gas station route here, but I do think that it would be good for, and again, I understand a position that a Christian Horner's in. Of course, publicly speaking, you have to defend your driver, but it was pretty laughable to see everybody try to pin that on Lando somehow. If you want to argue it's a racing incident, I disagree, but I can at least understand where some people might be coming with that. If you're trying to say that was on Lando, I'm sorry, I don't know what accident you were watching.
I think Senna raced with his heart. Michael raced with his head. Hamilton races with both heart and head, but Max races with emotions. And sometimes his ego gets in the way. That's what Max does. And that is not sustainable in a world championship. It's really not. People say, oh, well, Max won 2021. Did he? Did he? Not in terms of it was all decided in the not in terms of it was all decided by all that cheating stuff. Nothing like that. Did Max actually win 2021? Think about it. Silverstone turned in on Lewis. Lewis was on the inside. They both. I always read that as a 50-50. In Italy, he drives Lewis off. What would you have put that one as? Hamilton or Max in Silverstone?
I think it's like 80-20 Lewis at minimum.
I
don't know. I know
50-50.
people said Lewis said I was fully alongside it. But I don't know. I feel like that corner that early in the race, lap 1, I think it's supposed to.
Because we can go back. Max pushed him towards that pit wall. He did exactly what he did. He forced him towards the wall. Where was Lewis supposed to go? There's a wall there. He couldn't change his position because Max shoved him against it.
That's the previous corner, though. Then you have a straightaway. They can reposition themselves, and that's a separate incident.
Go back and watch because Max shuts the door. He comes across the straight, the national pit straight, shuts the door, and then goes back to take the normal line in. But Lewis can't do that because he's too far into the apex. So Lewis is stuck on that inside line, and Max sweeps across the front of him. That's why I read it as a 50-50. Lewis should have backed off, and Max shouldn't have forced him towards the pit wall. That's how I read it at the time. But what was my point? Yeah, did Max actually win 2021? Because in my view, yes, he's won the championship, all that good, but he lost the battle on the track because he let his emotions and ego get the better of him. So Brazil 21, ramming Lewis off the track at turn 4 at Decine de Laga. Monza, forcing him off the outside of the pit lane after he's just come out of the pits, and then revving his engine, which spins the wheel tires on Lewis's head. That was uncalled for. Should have been a race ban. Wasn't a race ban. I still say that should have been, because that could have really, that could have killed Lewis. The way that wheel was hanging over the halo there, that was not cool. But at the same time, Lewis did things like that year as well. That wasn't good. So in terms of the 50-50 balance, and then, of course, Max, all that thing in Saudi Arabia, do it tactically, forcing him off at turn 1. Max can never race wheel to wheel. That's not me slandering him, because I think Max is a great driver. We've seen him have some brilliant wheel to wheel battles. The only driver who I think can race Max Verstappen is Charles Leclerc, because they've had that rivalry coming through karting. They've had all the incidents, and now Charles knows how to race Max, and Max knows how to race Charles. Lando never raced Max until he got to Formula 1. They weren't in the same categories. Lando came up the other Formula routes. He came up through British touring cars in the Ginettas up to GP3, into F2, into F1. Max came up from Euro Formula 3 straight to F1. So then they've yet to actually know how to race each other wheel to wheel. That's why they were seeing sparks. You go back to Bahrain in 22 and some other races that we've seen Charles and Max battling, like Saudi, they can race each other hard because they know how to race. So it's a question of you've got to understand how they race and know when to back off. They don't. But Charles has had to learn, because Max is an aggressive driver and he races with his ego. That's always my take on it.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with the bulk of what you said there. But I mean, I don't want to open up that can of worms either. I mean, Max Verstappen objectively scored the most points and crossed the finish line first at Abu Dhabi. That's good enough for me. I understand it was very controversial how it got there. But it's been 2.5 years, and he has since won 2 more championships. So, I mean, all the people that are saying he's an illegitimate human error champion, I don't think you have any legs to stand on left at this point. You have to at least give him the 2. Sorry, what was that?
He's a legitimate champion, 100%.
Yeah. I'm not saying you were saying that. I was just saying people are gonna.
No, I get what you mean. I'm on about the fact. He's won the world championships, but did he win the mind game on the track? Did he win the championship that way? He lost, in my opinion, he lost the on-track battle in 21. He won the championship, but lost the battle. So it's how you win the war, but you lose the battle. That's the same thing. 22, 23, it was as soon as that Red Bull got technical issues sorted, he was off and running, and Ferrari fell apart mid-season. But now he's actually got competition again. We're seeing old things start to flow up again, and you can't blame Lando. And Max is a great driver. I just wish he could give us the fair racing. I guarantee you, if Max learns how to race wheel to wheel, we will see some of the best years ever in Formula 1, hands down, because he is the man to beat. People are catching him now. I want to see them being fairly raced. Don't want to see them out of the race and Max winning by that. That's not how you do motorsport, in my opinion. Any more knots from you?
I just have one more follow-up for you, and then we can go into the closing. But if you had to rank Max right now, I mean, do you put Max on the level of the Hamiltons, Schumachers, and Sennas, and Prosts, and Fangios of the world? I mean, that's probably my top 5, maybe not in that order. Do you think Max has cracked that echelon yet, or do you think he still has to prove himself in terms of racecraft before we put him in that conversation?
I'm currently going through, as a program idea, of going through my top 10 Formula One drivers of all time. I'm thinking about it. Max, he's on the list, but I don't know where to put him. Because for me, I've always thought number 1, Jim Clark. I've always thought Jim Clark was number 1 because Jim, of course, he could race anything and be champion in anything. So I've always thought Jim Clark was up there. Senna,
he just had his career cut
Moss,
short untimely. Yeah, you can certainly make that argument on talent.
Yeah, things like Senna, Moss, and they always come into my mind as well. Schumacher, Hamilton's definitely though. Of course, he's got to be. Vettel, he's on the list because he had that talent. Fernando is hovering on that, but to nail it down, there's so many great champions and so many greats of Formula One. Like Sterling Moss never won a championship, but he's still a greatest of all time because in his generation, everyone went, well, what did Moss do in that session? But Max, I would put Max now, just thinking about off the top of my head, about 9th on the list of all time.
Okay.
If I had a top 10, I'd put him 9th, just because he's still in his early days. Yes, he's won 3 World Championships, but Max has won those 3 World Championships very early. He's still got a lot to prove in my eyes. He's like a Schumacher. We're just seeing the beginning now. Let's see how far he can go.
Prost and Vettel, I'd say Prost is probably my 5A, Vettel's my 5B. Like Vettel, I mean, I could see a case.
Yeah,
for
they're
Vettel
very
being
similar.
Top 5 was, what is it, 53 wins, I think, and 4 championships. So I mean,
very similar to Prost, actually, isn't he? Prost is 52, 51, something like that.
Yeah,
51 for Prost. Yeah, they're very similar.
Yeah.
I still remember when Prost became number 1 of all time. I've got that I've got that video recording, Portugal in I think 87. It was recorded by my uncle because he used to do work with Alain Prost. So we recorded the BBC program, and my grandma had the tape, and I watched it. So that was one of the first classic races I ever watched when he became the all-time record scorer for most wins in Formula One. So yeah, it's quite weird how that all comes up. They just remind me of that.
One more comment here. Sorry, Josh. I thought you were about to.
Sorry, I was gonna. I'll go through if you want. Yeah, I think Hailie Deegan buys a drive with the 88 for JR Motorsport. Says Isaac as well. I think we had that. I think Isaac. Did you make that comment, or someone made that comment a few weeks ago?
I think
that's possible that she'd go there.
It's not the first time Isaac has said this, and Isaac, let me be clear. I appreciate you being in the chat room and leaving your comment here, and I understand you seem to feel pretty strongly about this. But just with all due respect, I don't think that would be a good move for either party at all. Because I think that when you look at why Hailie Deegan is being sat out for at least one race here, we'll see what AM Racing's future plans are. I assume she'll get back in the car after Chicago, but regardless, the results just haven't been there. So to go from this current ride to a better, higher ranked ride in the series. And if you're saying, car number 88, Junior Motorsports, I guess that would be a 5th full-time entry, which they could do. There are no limits in Xfinity and Truck like there are in the Cup Series, but that would spread their resources even thinner. I don't know that 5 full-time cars is something Dale Jr. wants to commit to. And like I said, quite frankly, I don't know that the performance has been there to merit that for Deegan. So I hope that she's not out of a ride entirely. Brandon and I were talking on the Encore show. We think along the lines of Joy Tomlinson, who wrote a column in Front Stretch last week before this news even broke yesterday, or Monday rather. Maybe Hailie Deegan should go back to ARCA, and compete for, top 10s, maybe even top 5s in a win, depending on what drive she could get there. And that would be better for her development than running 30th in an Xfinity car, not really learning anything from how poor she's been running. But I don't think a drive of that caliber in the second tier series is the best move for Deegan right now. So, if she were running a little bit better and, it was a sponsorship reason, or she was out of a ride or something for that, then maybe that would be a good landing spot for her. You break off your contract with Ford to take an opportunity like that. Absolutely. But I don't think that the performance level merits that at this current time.
Gee, you asked me that question about greatest F1 drivers of all time. I've been sat here while you've been talking, and I've been thinking there are so many. How am I going to pick just 10? There's so many great F1 drivers, and some you might even not even consider as greats. But
Tell you what, if Alonso had a better car the last decade,
Mm.
who's to say he couldn't be at, like Vettel, 50 something odd wins and 4 championships himself?
Do you know? I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm also going to put Button. I'd put Button on the list as well because of the 09 championship and the 2011 drive. And the fact that he had this, Button still has this gift of knowing just when the conditions are right for turning. Like from wets to dries as well. He always knew. Australia 2010, Canada 2011. Just that gift that I only remember Senna having in the past. Schumacher never had that. He was always Ross Brawn on the strategy call for that. Astral says, may have missed it at the start. Hybrid is coming after a hire for Indy. Thoughts and feelings on this? And do you think it will finally bring about a new chassis for the future? Yeah, this weekend is the first race for the hybrid engines for IndyCar in mid-Ohio as well.
I was going to say, I didn't think it was after. Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think it was after. I thought it was coming. Coming this weekend. Well, of course, I think it's long overdue. We were supposed to see this at the start of the year, but I think it was Rossi on record saying, basically, like if we try to do this, 4 cars would finish. Like the technology just hadn't gotten there at that point, so they had to delay it to mid-season. And as much as I'm not a fan of changing the regulations in the middle of the calendar year, in the middle of the season, I think that, given that it was supposed to start this year, I think I can make the exception for this one. But yeah, I mean, the new chassis is long overdue too. I mean, at least we've gotten some new aero kits over the years. We had the manufacturer specific ones for a few years, and then the universal one coming in 2018. But this is, I mean, it's literally season 13 of this basic at its core DW12 chassis here. It's time. I mean, there's no denying it. That needs to be at the very top, even higher precedent in my mind than adding ovals to the schedule. We need to evolve from this current chassis. There's been no, I mean, the hybrid engines now are a good start, but there's been no technical evolution, which is what the sport was built on. And what, again, sometimes I wish I was born 50 years earlier than I was, because I would have loved to have been growing up at the Indianapolis 500 watching that engineering development in the 60s and 70s and that era of just how quickly things were changing. It's been the complete opposite for our generation. We're on year 13 with ostensibly the same car. So, we'll see. I think, Astro Police, your latest comment here about the Fox deal, I think with that, again, it's a major opportunity. And again, another win for Fox with, the whole deal with being bumped from USA to Peacock and CNBC at Laguna Seca. We don't have to worry about that next year. Certainly don't have to worry about it after the 500, because then Fox's NASCAR coverage will be wrapped up, and then the season ends before the NFL season begins. So, and if we somehow do, we have 2 dedicated sports channels. NBC has a channel best known for Law and Order reruns and a channel best known for Shark Tank reruns. So, I mean, I think Fox, that's certainly a stronger position there. And they don't have a streaming service at the level of Peacock, though. So there is that. But, I think overall, on paper, this new deal coming in next year could be very good for the series. It's just, it is the network that it's with that gives me some pause and levels of reservation. But IMS Productions, as long as they continue to take care of their business and Fox hires the right on-air people, I think there is a lot of good potential here with this deal. And maybe that trickles down into the economics of the series and allows them to finally bring a new chassis in.
We can only hope it's the start of big changes in IndyCar, because as we were critical at the start of the year about how it was being progressed, and now finally we're seeing just a few flickers of intelligent sparkles starting to happen on this series as well. Thank you, Ben. Okay, so taking a look at our upcoming schedule as well. Saturday on Grid Live pre-race, that is at noon Eastern. Sunday, Grid Live wrap-up, that's 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Chicago. And Monday, Grid Encore, recapping the Xfinity race at Chicago and the pair of ARCA West races at Irwindale as well. Now, the Indy NXT is also at Mid-Ohio, and Formula 2 and Formula 3 are at Silverstone, and I'll be sending a video over because I'll be recording them basically straight after the races, otherwise I'll forget, and I'm away next week as well. So please do continue to support and do subscribe to our YouTube channel here as well. Thank you very much for helping us reach 1,000 subscribers, now on the road to 2,000 subscribers. You can hit the bell icon to get notifications for when we go on air, and you can follow all of our social media platforms and visit gridnetworktv.com. That again is gridnetworktv.com. So you can take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. You can join Colin, Mark, Toshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network. And we do encourage you to join these fine folks who keep us on the air. And once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue our coverage. The link to all of that is in the video description. And if you want to make a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link. You can get your name on the board and invest as much as you want, and consider buying a specific on-air personality, and they will thank you on the air as well. The link to all of that is in the video description once more. Now, our own Joe Samaniego and Nicole Fry finished covering the Formula E race weekend at Portland. The links to the playlist of their Portland E pre-content and the photo gallery are in the video descriptions below. Now, I'm going on a 2-week break as I will be on fact-finding missions for future grid shows and also future Jamie Motorsport shows, and also taking a little bit of a holiday during the mid-season as well. So I won't be in the next 2 Grid Tonight shows or IndyCar coverage at Iowa. But as Astral says, cheers, chaps, happy race weekend all around. I want to end this by echoing what Astral says. A very happy 4th of July to everybody over there in America. If you're watching in the UK, please do go to your polling stations and vote tomorrow in the general election. It is very, very important. So a happy 4th of July to everybody. Have a very happy holiday. For Kobe Lambeth and Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and lastcar.info, I'm Joshua Birch. Thanks for watching. They'll see you next time. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.